Well, my friends, inflation has come in and it has come in low. And if we want to participate in this ridiculous game wherein we say, well, if inflation going up was Joe Biden's fault, then inflation coming down must be credited to Joe Biden. Now, you and I and many of the people that are in our audience kind of prefer to operate more in the real world where we don't play these political games with gas prices and with inflation. So let's not play them. Let's just look at the data and understand that inflation is a global phenomenon, and we're going to look at global numbers and we're going to punch the microphone as I often do when I get excited. And we'll hopefully have an understanding of the fact that this is something that shouldn't really surprise us because it's been the most likely trajectory for a while, although in general, we are not particularly good as humans at making economic predictions. It did seem as though inflation peaked some months ago and it would be lower by the end of the year, and indeed it is. So let's start with the data. CNBC reporting, consumer prices rose less than expected in November, up 7.1% from a year ago. The consumer price index rose just 0.1% from the previous month, increased 7.1% from a year ago, compared with respective estimates of 0.3 and 7.3%. Core CPI, the consumer price index, rose 0.2% on the month and 6% on an annual basis, compared with respective estimates of 0.3% and 6.1%. Stocks soared. The Dow is, as of right now, up about 400 points. Inflation-adjusted average hourly earnings for workers rose 0.5% for the month, though they were still down 1.9% from a year ago. Now, whenever we do these numbers, there's confusion. David, wait. Are prices up or are they down? What does it mean? But if prices rose, how are they down? Remember that there are two components to this. What happened last month, and how does adding the data from last month change the last 12 months of inflation? So remember, we want a little bit of inflation. We have an economy, and I know that this gets into, well, do we really buy into this traditional economic stuff? And I get that. But the sort of standard view is you want a little bit of inflation. A little bit of inflation is good. Why? If you have a ton of inflation, things become unaffordable, so people stop buying, which hurts businesses, so they lay people off, and then those people have no money to buy stuff, and it's bad for the economy. That's too much inflation. If you have deflation, it might sound good. You might say, sir, ma'am, cheaper stuff is good. Deflation sounds good. No, it's not good for the economy. Why? If you expect prices to continue declining, if you're looking at a car, right, an electric vehicle, for example, and you expect, because we're in a deflationary situation, that if you wait 6 months, the prices will be lower, you wouldn't buy the car. That's bad for the businesses. The employees at the electric car businesses get laid off because nobody's buying cars because you expect prices to go down. So the idea is a little bit of inflation creates an incentive to buy now rather than later. It's not so much that things become unaffordable, and that is where economic growth comes from. Now, believe me, I'll be the first to tell you those sort of completely rational actor economic analyses lack a very real component. I am with you, but those are the oranges, for lack of a better term, of why a little bit of inflation is good. Getting us back to the numbers. There was a little bit of inflation last month, but compared to November of 21, it was lower. So when we replace in the 1-year inflation number the November 21 number with the November 22 number, year over year inflation is lower. Okay, so that's that. Dow surges 400 points as investors cheer the light inflation report. I don't put a lot of stock in these types of headlines. I think it's important to remember that, to some degree, this has been predicted for months. So if markets were completely efficient and rational, this new data would have already been priced in. It doesn't really make sense that the Dow pops because the data was what it is, but the expectation on paper was of slightly higher inflation and it came in lower. Okay, if you're in the market, it's a good day. And as many of you know, much of the return in the markets happens on just 10 days out of the year. Today may be one of those days. Lastly, remember that inflation is a global phenomenon. And when you look at the inflation rates, this is data from October in some countries and November in some. You see that among wealthier and larger nations, nations that are part of this list, we're looking at the tradingeconomics.com list. You see that the U.S. is sort of like right in the middle now with year-over-year inflation at 7.1%, down from in the high eights. And you see that, for example, in Italy and in the U.K., inflation is significantly higher. Whereas in Brazil and France and Singapore and Spain, inflation is lower than in the U.S. Has very little to do with Joe Biden. Global phenomenon, U.S. sort of like right in the middle there. So this is overall, I believe, a good thing. Inflation has been too high. It has been a strain on American budgets. And hopefully this continues and we can get down. Again, we're not good at this, but it would be nice to continue seeing the year-over-year numbers tick down over the next 6 months, where maybe we can get to like the low fives, high fours by summertime. And that would be historically much more pleasant, I think is the word that I would use. So that's the latest on inflation. When you're working during the day, when you're on the go and you're in the mood for something sweet, don't reach for the candy bar. Go for something that's just as good, but without the sugar and carbs. Our sponsor, Monk Pack, makes delicious keto granola bars and nut and seed bars. They're tasty, crunchy, gooey, sweet and salty. I love them. But each bar has only 1 gram of sugar, 2 to 3 net carbs, and about 150 calories. Perfect if you're doing keto or low carb or low sugar. You can have a treat that feels indulgent and satisfying without the guilt. Monk Pack comes in flavors like sea salt dark chocolate, caramel sea salt. They just launched 2 new flavors I love, peanut butter cocoa chip and dark chocolate cocoa. My favorite thing is the texture. I've tried a lot of these nut bars, granola bars. Monk Pack is superior. If you don't agree, you get your money back, and it is the perfect holiday gift. Go to monkpack.com and get 20% off your first order with the code PACMAN. The link is down below.